One of the most important things, at least to me in life, is something they don't teach you in school. And I'm not talking about money or how to start a business and things like that. They don't really teach you that either. But I'm actually talking about the rules of the mind. Because we're walking around Earth with this thing and no one knows how it works. And they don't really teach you how this thing works or what the rules are, at least, whether you're in grade school or high school or even college. You could take psychology classes, but that's different. What I'm talking about is the basic, practical, pragmatic rules of the mind. Meaning, like, I don't care about what the theories are or what the biological implications are and neurotransmitters and the chemicals in our brains and different parts of the brain. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I mean is, what are the rules of the mind? Like, what are some of the ways in which it works? So that's what I'm going to tell you guys today. So this is more important than anything else. It's kind of the foundation. I mean, what good is it if you know how to make money and do all these other things, but you don't even know how to use your mind? So there is about 8 rules to the mind. There are 8 rules to the mind. In general, now when we're talking about these rules of the mind, we're speaking in generalities. We have to, because individuals are there's too many variables that give individuals a unique personality, which is why I don't really believe in personality tests too much, because I don't think you can, if you're trying to understand individuals through a collective model, and then you're making them fit into these models, then you won't really actually ever understand the individual. But they can help. Because when you're seeing clients or when you're reading people or trying to get to know people, it helps to have some sort of guideline to kind of point you in the right direction. So they do have a use. But getting back to the rules of the mind. So rule number 1. Oh, but what I didn't finish my thought on generalities. So these rules, they're general rules, which means that if I were to say, like, all people have, or if I were to say people have 2 arms and 2 legs, it's true for the most part in general, but yes, some people don't have 2 arms and 2 legs. So anyway, the first rule is that every thought or idea causes a physical reaction. And most people are familiar with this. You think of something negative, you'll feel negative. If you think of something happy, you will feel happy. If you think of someone you're in love with, you might get butterflies. If you think about a vacation you're going to go on, you might get excited and you might get butterflies too. So that's a physical reaction caused by a thought or an idea. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is what is expected tends to become realized, whether it's good or bad. So that's how the subconscious mind works off of expectation. That's why you have these non-voluntary responses. Like if you've had a few good experiences, let's say you've had a good success rate at something, and it makes you confident. Now you have that confidence because you know that you have a high success rate at this thing that you're confident at. After a while, the reason you're confident is because you're expecting to have the outcome you want. You're expecting to win or to have a success rate. And the more successes you have, the more expectation you set up for yourself, and it becomes a self-sustaining feedback loop called confidence, or called mastery. So what is expected tends to become realized. And this isn't like predicting the stock market. Like if I expect my stock to rise, it doesn't happen externally. This is all internally only. Okay, so that's rule number 2. Rule number 3 of the mind is, when it comes to the subconscious mind, imagination overrides willpower and reason. And an example of this is a fear or a phobia. So let's start with the fear. You could be totally rational. You could be a really rational person. You could be You could be a rational person, but let's say you're afraid of heights. And if you go up on a huge building, a huge skyscraper, and let's say it has a clear floor and you can see all the way down, your imagination, if your imagination has a fear of heights, you're going to think about falling. You're going to think about, oh, what's it going to feel like on the way down, all that gravity and then hitting the ground. And your imagination at that point is overriding your reason, your sense of reason, and your sense of willpower to just stick it out. It could be that bad for some people. Get me out of here. Okay, so that is rule number 3. Now, rule number 4 is that opposing ideas cannot be held at the same time, or else one or the other will become dominant. And this happens all the time. You've heard of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you do try to hold two opposing ideas at the same time. And for the brief time that you are doing that, you can experience some discomfort and anxiety, but eventually one idea is going to become the dominant one. So like you could be for abortion or for women's rights or something, but it might be against your religion. And you can wrestle with this for some time, but eventually one of those ideas is going to take precedence over the other. So rule number 5 is, once an idea has been accepted by the subconscious mind, it stays fixed. It stays fixed until replaced by a new idea or by another idea. And that's why in hypnosis, we don't want to just remove symptoms without replacing it with something, or even habits. If, let's say you're trying to quit smoking weed or something like that. Let's say you're trying to quit smoking weed. You have to, or it works better, you have to pick a new habit. Because if you just remove weed and then you have this big void, this blank spot, your subconscious mind is going to fill it in with something else. So that'll probably be another addiction. But that's why it's good that you have a program ready for you that you're excited about to step into. Like for me, it was martial arts and skateboarding and socializing that made me, this is a long time ago. I still use weed nowadays, but this was like a long time ago when I wanted to quit. That's what I replaced my weed habit with. It was with socializing, martial arts, and what was the other one? Skateboarding. And I was able to do those things a lot better when I wasn't always stoned all the time. So that's an example of an idea stays fixed in the subconscious without being replaced. Rule number 6 of the mind. Each suggestion acted upon creates a greater possibility for accepting successive suggestions. So an example of this is when I first started learning MMA, I was already suggestible to the demonstration that my coach gave to me. And as soon as I accepted that first suggestion, which is I should train more, it was weird because everything he said to me after that, post that first suggestion, would go right through, and I became super suggestible to my coach, and for good reason. Is because he knew things that I didn't about this whole new fight game that I was new to, but yeah, that I remember the feeling of being more and more suggestible after I was first suggestible to the first suggestions that he was giving me. And so that would be to just, you got to stay consistent. Don't get injured. Because you could go in and you could, everybody has like machismo and everything, and they're trying to prove themselves and show off. But if you break something or you get injured, then you're out for 3 weeks and you're not going to actually improve. So it's important that you want to train hard. You want to train hard, but you also want to take care of yourself and your teammates, your partners who you're training with. Okay, so rule number 7: a message to the subconscious connected to an emotional experience has more power. And this is obvious. This also applies to memories. You remember anything, and everything has much more of an impact when there's an emotional charge or when it's connected to an emotional experience. So just think about that. If you're trying to remember something, connect it to a powerful emotion. And a powerful emotion meaning one that comes up when you think about a certain situation. Like if you think about your mom or your dad or your lover, whoever, or that time in life where you overcame something really challenging and it was really hard, but you pulled through, and it was really emotional, blood, sweat, and tears. When you connect anything to a powerful to an emotion, it becomes more powerful. Okay, so the last rule of the mind is the law of reversed action, or the reversed effect law. Now what this means is it's basically the harder you try, the more difficult it becomes, or the greater the conscious effort exerted, the less the subconscious responds. Go ahead and try to feel tense, but the more you try to feel tense, the more relaxed you feel. The harder it is to feel tense. Go ahead and try to feel tense, but the harder you try to feel tense, the more difficult it is to feel tense. And so when you're walking around Earth every day of your life, your mind is under these rules, is functioning under some of these rules. And when you understand these rules intrinsically, it allows you to take care of yourself a lot better. It allows you to not misjudge all of your behaviors and all of your thoughts when you know that this is how the mind works. So you may ask yourself sometimes, like, why do I keep doing the same thing over and over when I know I shouldn't be doing this? Well, it's because, go back to some of these rules of the mind. The law of reversed effort maybe is the harder you try to not do something, it just gets harder and harder. So try easier. Don't try so hard. Just do it is really the answer a lot of the times. Don't try to do something. Just do it. Which is another hypnotic principle that I just posted recently, which is trying. The word try is a setup for failure. But so these are the 8 rules of the mind, and I'm going to be breaking these down with even more depth and clarity in future videos. But for right now, these are the rules of your mind, and we're governed by these. And like I said, these are general rules that have been observed, and 9 out of 10 times, these are the rules of the mind. And it's not based on scientific studies or anything like that. It's just human behavior. You don't always need to do a scientific study for everything. You can just observe. Isn't that science, like observing? Well, here we go. So hope this helps you, and definitely encourage you to learn as much as you can about your mind.